Enter by the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and there are many who go in by it.
Yes.
Verse 4.
There are people who want to live by God's rules and regulations, meaning God's way of life, God's culture.
In Christianity, in Christian culture, there are rules and guides.
Yeah.
That is why it look as if it's narrow. It's narrow because you are not allowed to do whatever you like.
Constraints in different
Yes.
They are not thinking of what they said. They say Christianity is not just a religion. It is a way of life. Why not consider what you just said? Indeed, yes, it is really not just a religion. It is a way of life. And it came from the man Jesus, not from Jews.
He will go into it, search it, do his best to find out why something is how it is and what will make it improve from how it is.
Yeah.
To this, African is not bothered to look into such.
Yeah.
We think everything will be as they are forever.
That's why the Lord called us in the book of Isaiah chapter 18, the careless people. Or complacent people. Okay, that's Jeremiah chapter Ezekiel 39.
Yes.
A careless people.
Careless, laid back.
A complacent people. That's not very complimentary, you know. I have here in our handout, and that's a summary of our old meetings. Traditions refer to laws, rules, and regulations of a people which govern and condition their way of life and determine their culture. Customs refer to long-standing practices considered as unwritten law and resting its authority on long-standing consent and use. So whether it is written or not, that is how we do it. Do you know how? That's how
we say it.
Most of us live in this place. It's our custom, really. It's customary. Isn't that how it is in your place, Pastor?
It's just the same thing. Like custom. If you want to do something, they will tell you, first of all, what is your grade? If you are not holding any traditional seat, the way you do things must be different from the way the person who is having traditional seat. So that is their custom.
And these things are not written anywhere.
They are not written anywhere.
Folklore, passed down mouth to mouth.
For example,
Customs.
it took me time to know that in my place, even though they know your father, they know your mother, they know your village, they will tell you are not a son. So you now have to ask them, what does it take to become a son? Then they will tell you that you have to go and look for your father. And those are processes that you have to settle certain things. And then when you finish, they say, now you can call you a son.
And those things are usually idolatrous.
Yes. And not only idolatrous, it's also waiting for you if you pass on. The day you die, and they want to do burial, they will go back to the process.
No, but the issue is that those things are not Christian.
Christians.
Mostly not.
So Christians ought,
idolatrous.
Christians ought to have their own pattern.
Yeah.
But we are now marrying these ones I'm talking about with the Christian way I have come to. And it becomes a problem. That's the conflict we are into now.
Okay, that's right. So that is how we come back again to where we ended the old meetings of cultural conflict, that we as of now are not able to determine how to live our lives in Africa. The issue of double kingdom, probably triple. double
Secular.
kingdom. We discussed it once by saying there are people who want to live by God's rules and regulations, meaning God's way of life, God's culture. But there are other people who want to live by the native people's culture and customs, and it appears that they are a little stronger than the Christians.
Yeah.
And then there is an overriding government,
Secular.
so to say, a secular government.
Yeah.
So we have three leaderships over us: the government, secular government, the Christian religious, the pagan religious, not even mention Islamic religious in some parts of our country. Because of this, I think we are confused. And in the first meeting we said God will not accept us that way though. So what are we going to do? This is the point of bringing him back up. What are we going to do? Bishop, what do you think we should do?
I think what we will do, if I may suggest, we fall in line with what Jesus said in the book of Matthew chapter 7.
Is it 15?
27.
No, 7,
Okay.
13.
Matthew 7:13.
Enter by the narrow gate.
Yes. Entering by the straight
Narrow way,
gate.
okay.
Yes, enter by the narrow gate. For wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and there are many who go in by it.
Yes.
Verse 14, because narrow is the gate, and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it.
Yeah.
Wow.
You see that Africans like to marry anything they see without cross-checking whether this will be suitable, whether this will be comfortable, whether this will be progressive.
Yeah.
And this is where we fail. The Igbo man, if you do anything to Igbo man, he will ask you, he will react immediately to tell you whether he accepts that thing or refuse it, or whether he will go on with it or tell you, please, I don't want to have this.
Okay.
So this is the problem we are encountering in Africa. Whatever you bring to us, we follow. Provided many people are there. Jesus is talking about broad. Broad means open, free for all. You know, when it is free for all, let's go. But in Christianity, in Christian culture, there are rules and guides.
Yeah.
That is why it look as if it's narrow. It's narrow because you are not allowed to do whatever you like.
Constraints in different
Yes. And Jesus know that people sometimes like things that give them free movement without cross-checking the danger ahead of them.
Yeah.
So this is where we have the problem in the African culture, and this we should try to avoid if we must maintain Christian culture. We must be sure that we don't swallow everything that is put in our mouth.
Yeah.
There are some of them that may not be good to our health. So in terms of what is involved in African culture, some of them are not good in Christian culture. So such we have to drop if we must make progress.
I think that one important thing we must do is to convince our brothers and sisters that there is something called Christian tradition. As of now, I've noticed that people when they refer to tradition, they say the native tradition. How can we abandon our tradition? And yet they are honestly making an effort to be Christians. They even preach Christ to people because they see Christianity
as foreign,
only as a religion, a way of reaching God. They see it as European, or at the best Israeli. I want to allow us to begin to go into these areas. Like now, let me read a part of the Bible, and we begin to think about Christian tradition that we make Christian culture. Second Thessalonians chapter number 2, verse number 6. From verse number 6 down. Now we command you, brethren, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that you withdraw yourselves from every brother that walketh disorderly, and not after the tradition which he received of us. For you yourselves know how you ought to follow us, for we behave not ourselves disorderly among you.
So there's a disorderly way to behave.
There's a disorderly way, doing just anyhow you like, but there is an orderly way which Paul, Timothy, Titus, Luke, the doctor, followed when they came to teach them Christianity. Today in Africa, we have seen church leaders going back home to wed their daughters according to traditions of natives, of pagans. I want you to comment on that. Start off, Pastor Dan. What do you say?
Yes, like you have rightly said, many people who say they are Christians, believers, do not know that Christianity is far more than a religion. And they say it. Before you say anything, they say, Christianity is not just a religion, it's a way of life. They are not thinking of what they said. They say Christianity is not just a religion, it is a way of life. Why not consider what you just said? Indeed, yes, it is really not just a religion. It is a way of life. And it came from the man Jesus, not from Jews. Those who are Bible students, you know that Christ was killed for being against the normal traditions of men that Jews were practicing, which he said God did not tell them to do. Like washing their hands before eating, washing of cups and pitchers. Christ challenged them for this, saying that they were nullifying the traditions of God or the teachings of God by this their own man-made traditions. So what he was implying is that those things they were doing were introduced by them, not by God.
Yeah.
So we in Africa, we must begin to consider the fact that Christianity is not Jewish. The man Jesus was a Jew,
First of all,
but he also was not even Jewish in his living.
that's right.
His culture was not a Jewish culture, so he was killed for it. So Europeans took this culture of Christ, which they were calling the way, which others called Christian in Antioch, and handed it over to the Europeans. The Europeans took it and imbibed it so much, and it became a European thing. If you look very well in Europe, they had their different cultures. The Scottish have their way, the British have their ways, the Finnish have their ways, the Dutch have their ways. But when they come together as Europe, you see them behaving the same way.
That's
the
right.
suit is their universal dressing.
Yeah.
They have their tables, forks and knives, dinners, this, that, breakfast, lunch, in between meals, dessert. All these things are not from individual countries. It's something that they decided to do together.
They developed that.
This is the accepted continental way of life, as against native or particular country way of life.
Yes,
so if we accept that in Africa, we will also see that we will not be too worried about these things, because that's what many people are worried about. They say, they want to change our culture. That's the wrong statement. That our culture, if you are a Christian, has already changed to Christ and his teachings. But I've been in the Lord for at least 20 years properly, when I had my senses working. And I've not really seen where people teach the teachings of Christ. Why? The books of Matthew 5, 6, 7, the Beatitudes. Many don't say this is that is the teaching. These are the teachings of Jesus Christ himself.
That's the tradition.
So that is his tradition that he handed down. And many times we break many of those things. The things that he said with his own mouth. Many Christians break them. I will give only one example, so we can I won't kill time. The issue of fathers. He told us, you have no father except your father in heaven. In fact, he said, our father.
We call the word father.
Meaning him. He also put himself in that shoe, that the father to him and us is God. And he is our master. And we are our brothers. But today, there are 1,000 fathers.
Yes.
In fact, if you don't have a father, you're not considered a Christian.
Wow.
They call it spiritual mentor. Who is your father? Who is your father? But Jesus is someone to say, don't call anybody father.
Father or not.
We have one father in heaven, and I am your master, and you are brothers.
Wow.
I will stop there. That's the only example I will give. So you see, these are things that we just unconsciously break. So because of it, we are confused. We don't even know what Christ's traditions are anymore. We just practice a mixture of Old Testament and New Testament, and we call ourselves Christians. Thank you very much.
Praise the Lord. Do you know that I'm going to build upon what you're saying and turn to the other discussions? I noticed a man laugh at Christian people. That was in a German program. I don't want to overstress it, but he was talking about Robert Mugabe and the way he was treated. The people were saying, you know, we are Christians, we want to treat Robert Mugabe very respectfully because we are Christians. And this television guide or commentator began to laugh before he realized that he was on television. But you know that what Pastor Dan is saying will make people think really that we are just assuming we're Christians. For instance, this question of father, but it will become more resounding if we talk about something like do not love,
hate your enemies.
Do not hate your enemies.
Christ said that with his own mouth.
The Lord commanded us in Matthew chapter 5, 45, 47, 48. Yes. You have to love also your enemies.
Pray for them.
But you know the Christianity of Africans, black Africans now is on enmity. Die, my enemy, die. How can somebody from outside believe that really we are Christians? Do you want to make a comment on that? How did we come about that?
Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.